Hi everyone, this is Matt. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about transition from academia to industry. This is such a big topic. Today I'm going only to give you a high-level overview, and then in the next few sessions or the next few weeks I'm gonna go into much more detail. I want to talk about advantages and disadvantages of industry, about writing your CV, your cover letter, recruitment process, interviews, and so on. So if you want me to talk more about this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. In this way you will let me know that you want me to create more content on transition from academia to industry. And if there is anything specifically that you want me to cover, please leave a comment underneath, let me know. Let's start with advantages and disadvantages of academia and industry. So first of all, you will get paid much more in industry, and also you will get a permanent position in industry. And as we all know, in academia, you will probably work for a number of years on temporary contracts before you get your tenure. So industry will give you more money and a permanent position straight away. So it's much better in this sense. On the other hand, academia is much more flexible and you have much more freedom, right? You can come anytime you want, you can leave anytime you want. And in industry, you will have to come for 9, leave at 5, live a regular 9 to 5 or maybe 8 to 4 life, right? However, in industry, no one will expect you to work evenings or weekends. In academia, you will own your work, you will have full ownership of your project. In industry, this is not going to be the case. However, your work in industry, but not in academia, will be directly helpful to patients and to clients in the near future. So you like what you hear, you'd like to move to industry, and now you're checking on LinkedIn, all the job adverts and companies you could work for, and there's so much of it, and it might be a little bit overwhelming. My advice is to look for big companies first. So what you really want is your first company to be an industry giant, right? You want to work for one of those massive companies because they have very well thought through processes, very thorough processes, and you can learn so much from them. And because they are a massive company, you can easily move within the company from one department to another department to find a role that you actually really like. Don't think too much about the role itself, think about the company, because once you are in the industry, it will be much easier to transition from one role to another within the same company or in between the companies. However, if you do work for a massive company first, then it will be much easier to get a job somewhere else, because other companies will value the fact that you worked for the industry giant, you understand the processes, you can do things well according to the industry giant, and they will pay you extra money for this. Another reason why I wouldn't focus so much on the role is because industry doesn't value your PhD as much as you would like them to. And the reason for this is quite simple. During your years in academia, you were working in an unregulated environment, and industry is a very highly regulated environment. So where I work, we follow ICH guidelines. And what this means is that everything needs to follow certain regulations, right? You can't do things any way you want, like in a lab in academia. Everything is actually specifically described how you're supposed to do it. And this is why the industry will not value your lab experience so much, but they will value your optimizing skills, troubleshooting, problem solving skills, right? This is something that you're really good at. These are skills that you developed over your PhD. So you can use these to progress faster within a company once you learn how to work in a regulated environment. So I would say go for a big company. Don't focus so much to get a specific position, because it's much more difficult to get into the industry first than actually get a job afterwards once you are in industry. So just break in, get yourself inside, and then work your way up. And because you have a PhD, because you gained all of these transferable skills, you will work your way up much faster. Okay, on the other hand, if you don't want to work for an industry giant, you could potentially work for a startup. That's also a really good idea, because startups are less established, meaning that when you go there, you end up doing lots of different things, which will make you a more holistic employee. And then once you work for a number of years within a startup, you can move to a different company and you will be able to show a whole range of different skills, which will be valued by your next employer, and they might pay you extra for this as well. So my advice is either go for a big company and then transfer within the company to find the role that you actually want to do, or go for a startup and then do lots of different things, figure out what it is that you really want to do in the process, and then go somewhere else and also get paid more for the fact that you have a full range of skills. The next step in the recruitment process would be to send your CV and your cover letter to the company, right? Now, your academic CV and your industry CV will be quite different. So that is simply because the person who will read your CV and your cover letter in the industry will be someone from human resources. And as you would expect, a HR expert will not be an expert in your field. So they will simply scan through your documents and look for keywords, right? And if your CV and your cover letter matches the list of keywords they have, then they will give you a call back. So you need to look at the job advert, find the keywords in the job advert, and then make sure that you use the same keywords in your CV and your cover letter. One thing that you will quickly realize is that if they like you in industry, they will call you back the next day or 2 days after, right? It will be very, very quick. If you're not so keen, then you will probably not hear from them at all, or you will only hear from them a few weeks after. But it's okay, this is part of a journey. You need to send tens and tens of applications, be rejected so many times over a few months before you actually find the job you want. And in the meantime, you might get a few interviews, which will be a great learning experience. But then finally, once you will get the job in industry, it will be so much easier to get your next job in the industry, right? It's just the part of breaking in that is difficult. And you need to be okay with rejections and just keep applying. Now, every time you apply, you need to tailor your CV and your cover letter to the job description and the company, right? So the HR will read through your documents, will find the keywords, and then they will call you. And they will want to hear from you that you've done your research on the company. But it's not like you want to work for any company, you want to work specifically for them, right? And we'll also ask you about your skills, about your employment history, education history, and then probably ask you what you're going to bring to the table. What it is so special about you? Why shall we hire you, not someone else? And this whole conversation will maybe only last 15-20 minutes, up to half an hour, and then the HR person will or will not recommend you to the hiring manager. The hiring manager is the person who is going to be your line manager. This is the person who is now going to look at your documents and decide, shall we interview this person, shall we interview you or not? Let's say they decide to interview you, they call you again and they schedule a meeting with you. Now you need to prepare for the meeting, so what kind of questions can you expect? I think what you can expect in general will be competency questions or behavioral questions. To give you a couple of examples of these could be questions about how you handle pressure, how you handle conflict, any examples when you resolved conflict, examples of how you optimized processes, how you made new professional relationships, how you went above and beyond for a client. Now, to understand how to really answer these questions is to speak with people who are actually doing the job you're applying for. Send 15 messages to 15 people on LinkedIn and ask them each a different question, and some of them will reply to you. And try to learn from these answers and use these answers as your own answers for the interview. Because it's much more likely that you will be able to get a quick answer from 15 people rather than trying to get one person to talk to you for 2 hours to answer all of your questions. Then Once you've done your research, you have all of your knowledge, you need to think about how to answer the questions in terms of the STAR guidelines. STAR stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. And you really need to follow this order so that your interviewer fully understands what you've done. Situation, describe what happened. Then task, describe what you were supposed to do. Action, tell them what you've done. Result, give them the outcome. After 1 or 2 rounds of interviews, they will offer you a position, they will give you the salary, and at this point you can leverage the fact that they already invested time in you and ask for more money. Maybe ask them for 10% extra, then they will get back to you and suggest 5% extra, and then it's up to you whether you want to continue negotiations or agree. So this was my high level overview to transition from academia to industry. If you want more of this content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. In the coming weeks, I'm planning to talk about advantages and disadvantages of academia and industry, how to write your CV and cover letter, how to prepare for your interviews, the recruitment process, and so on. So please let me know if there is anything you want me to cover specifically, and good luck.